Just look at this amazing cake. I'm just off work, very tired. This week is pretty busy, but you know what? I love you guys so much, and I definitely want to make some videos, right? But I also want to have happiness in this life. That's why I'm having a little bit of cake. Not bad, but not great as well. I'm joking, it's very good. So why not talking about things that happened in my life for the first time? I know that China is a very different country from many other countries, and of course when you come there you experience many things, or you see something maybe for the first time in your life. And because I've spent there a decent amount of time, but also not just as a traveler, but actually as a person living there, like a temporary resident, let's put it this way. Of course there were many situations that were unpredictable, but they happened, and they definitely helped me to understand that the world is very unpredictable and really fun. Well, not always. So let me begin this series of unpredictable, unexpected events with the probably most recent one that happened when I was residing in this beautiful country of China, the country of the dragon, and of course the best city in the world, Shanghai. I can't stop eating it. It's in front of me, guys. I'm so sorry. When COVID started, there was a big dilemma. There was dichotomy of these two choices, either to stay in China or to leave it. And you know what? It's like burning the bridges, because if I chose to leave it, I wouldn't be able to come back and finish my master's degree. And my master's degree was 2.5 years. It's, guys, a long period of time, right? And I think already like 1 year definitely passed, the most difficult one with classes. I mean, of course, writing thesis, like the second part of all this whole adventure, is also difficult, but classes, adjusting, it was already behind. A lot of work was put in that stuff, and I was of course considering. On the other hand, if I decided to stay, first of all, you don't know when the situation would end. Second of all, you couldn't actually leave the country, because due to the policy at that time, foreigners with a certain status, if they leave, they just wouldn't be able to enter. And of course I couldn't take that risk, because I wanted to get my piece of paper, which is called a diploma. At that time, actually, many of my friends already left, and basically that's what happened. They couldn't come back, so I had to help them collect their own stuff and somehow find ways to send it back to them. Some of them were able to finish their degrees, some actually stopped, you know. So that was a huge factor too. But you know what? I decided to stay. I enjoyed from A to Z during the quarantine time, but the most unpredictable thing, I would say, is actually the notorious lockdown in Shanghai, which was supposed to be a 2-week lockdown for different areas of Shanghai, like Pudong and Puxi, the east and west part of the city. But you know what? Something went wrong, and from 2 weeks it became 2 months. What was the reason behind that? How it was all done? We are not gonna discuss this. If we wanna, but I would say that I was living alone at the time and already left campus. So first of all, I was pretty isolated already, not in the student community, but in the real world of Shanghai and the COVID lockdown. But I would say that the buildings were sealed and you couldn't go outside. My place was very tiny to begin with. I really had no idea how I was going to actually survive, especially not knowing at the time how long that was going to be. No food was prepared for 2 months apparently, especially my fridge was like that. I mean, guys, I lived in China, mostly takeout was my food, but you know what, that's how it started. I was in my shoebox apartment, but in downtown of Shanghai, enjoying my lack of freedom to go outside. But I would say this only happened if the case was identified in the building. So if there was a person, the building would be sealed and you couldn't just go outside. Another part of that is that every morning you actually don't have a schedule or anything. You just have this white guy. There were these popular white guys there who would just walk in the court of your building and just yell, saying that it's time to go and make a test. The test mostly was from the mouth, which I appreciate. No nose, nothing unpleasant. I would say, especially, I think everyone was kind of tired at the time, considering that it was done every day. A couple of times, actually, I think morning and... No, I guess it was only morning. Yes, it was happening every day, morning, China, a lot of people, Shanghai, a lot of people. And that had to be done. That was a lot of stuff, let's be honest. But of course I'm not gonna disclose some unpleasant moments, because I still wanna go back to China someday in the future. But no, I actually have to appreciate and say every situation was different, and I don't know about different areas, but I was living in downtown area, which is Huanpu area, the most beautiful area in Shanghai city, like one of the best ones, I would say. And I have to say that after a certain period of time, we started getting different food supplies like vegetables, meat from other provinces. It was like the so-called Xieju, kind of help from other provinces to Shanghai. But because the tests were designed in the way that actually like one pack that would be tested contain the samples from around 5 people, unfortunately, one of those 5 people, including me, actually had COVID. And therefore, after the results, which you could see directly in your phone application, and your QR code would be green, meaning that you are healthy, or it would be yellow, meaning that there is potential danger, or it would be red if you actually have COVID. It would be yellow, for example, if you don't do the tests. So you didn't have a chance not to go and just do the test, because it would be updated in the system, and after a certain period of time you would actually not be allowed later on to any stores if you don't do the test, or basically anywhere. That's the story I'm gonna tell later. So basically I received a call in Chinese, but you know, in China I have this rule to never speak in English, and actually every time I was there I never spoke English, only with the other expats, but never when solving any kind of stuff. So yes, I did receive that call, and you know what, I was actually excited, so I didn't act as if I didn't understand. I just said, okay, well, cool. And they told me that I would need to go to the facility, the quarantine facility that was in Shanghai. And they basically told me the time and when the bus will arrive, and I would just need to pack some stuff and go. At that time, as a real adventure lover, I was excited. I thought, wow, that's a change of events. I'm finally gonna at least leave my shoebox, right, and experience something new in this country. Never been in that situation. So in the beginning, of course, I was excited a little bit, even though I didn't feel that I had COVID or anything, to be honest. And later on, it turned out that I actually didn't have, but probably, I don't know what was the reason, because somehow I ended up there anyways. But once you get there, you cannot just, you know, open the door and leave. You actually have to do a couple of tests, maybe 3 in a row, 3 days in a row, and they all have to be negative, and only then you can actually leave. You can't just, you know, and plus you couldn't just leave because there was no public transport at all outside. So you actually had to contact your local community to send a transport for you. And that's something I was doing. After 3 days, I realized that that was not as exciting as I thought, and that I actually wanted to go home, take a shower, and be in peace. And that's basically what happened. I was contacting and calling everyone, anyone, until actually they did send a bus for me. I was doing it in the group chat of the community, where they first were saying that it's not as easy and they would probably need some other people and blah blah blah. But you know what, I was slowly going crazy and messaging in front of the whole of community, in those WeChat groups, everywhere, because I needed that bus. I got it. I finally got home, thanks God. After a decent amount of time, I was able to go outside, by the way. But the biggest unpredictable thing of all this, of course, never would I imagine that I would end up in a quarantine facility in Shanghai, in China, during the COVID lockdown. But didn't I even expect that somehow, among hundreds of people, I would meet people from my same street at the Huanpu area, who lived in like my building or the nearby building, and they would just talk to me and say, you know what, we saw you, we are blah blah blah, and we became friends. We watched movies together, we were talking together, and what I like most is that the age gap was like, you know, 60 something and 20 something. We were all together discussing, getting to know each other. Everyone was actually very creative. An older guy was actually working in the very big Chinese tech company. Some younger ones, they were those creative type of people, which is not surprising considering the street they were living and the area, Huanpu area. Who knows Shanghai? The people know who lives there, right? That was really cool. Until I indeed got COVID inside of the facility, and until I did realize that I wanted to take a nice shower and I wanted to sleep. But later on, after we all successfully got back from the center, regarding the guys, they actually stayed there much longer. I was probably the person who stayed the least, thanks to my, I would say I was just more desperate, and less scared because I'm still a foreigner, right? And probably I afforded myself to do more things that locals could do, but they chose not to do, right? Let's be honest. But the third unpredictable thing of whole this story, as I said, the people were from different, like, generations. They were from different backgrounds, actually some of them from other provinces. But the point is, when I came back home and I got invited to the person's home where we are all meeting, I realized that this is actually a representative of that cultural elite, the whole house was this old school mixture of old Shanghai, French concession, Western influences, and the people would, play some instruments, they would discuss some books, magazines, take pictures. I really feel blessed for such experience. And another great point is that I know that some of the experiences I was actually able to live through thanks to the knowledge of Chinese, of being able to talk to people, because eventually they accepted me. I didn't feel like I wasn't in the group. Of course you are a little bit different, but once you start talking, once you show actually that you understand not only the basic language they say, but for example jokes or cultural aspects, those guys eventually start treating you like their own, and that's what I do appreciate a lot. Actually, let's put it this way. I would say that this is like one unpredictable thing that branched out into two, right? End up in quarantine facility, meet friends there, local ones, and then also have an immersive experience into the Shanghainese elite, like old generation and new generation together, to see how they live, what they do, to be part of that, to get support from them, because they really actually supported me inside. They were asking things to make you feel, seen, and to make you feel more comfortable, and to, some of those moments were very nice, especially since the quarantine facility was in some kind of expo center. So we had an access to this rooftop or terrace. I don't remember what that exactly was, but the view was like magnificent when you just go outside there, and it's this kind of unpredictable feeling, like in movies or like in games. You are amidst quarantine in Asian country, in Shanghai, like this beautiful city. You see the river, Huangpu River, you see these bridges, these huge tall buildings. It's COVID, it's like dystopia future. I definitely sometimes miss those kinds of experiences because I believe that North America is much more boring, but there are many good and other positive aspects, I would say, in any country, right? So there are some things that I miss about Shanghai, but there are also some things that I do appreciate, for example, here in Toronto, that Shanghai didn't have. It may be culturally, it may be politically, there are many aspects, right? I got even sweaty when talking about that. Got so excited, guys. By the way, in the whole quarantine facility, I've seen only a couple of other Westerners. The girl who stayed longer while her boyfriend, actually, I remember he was released. I'm not sure because probably he was healthy. But yeah, experience that maybe, I don't know how many people actually experienced in the world. But to be honest, I feel very lucky. Don't think that I'm crazy. But just about the QR codes thing, after the city was finally released from the ceilings, lockdowns and everything, you still would need the green QR code to enter basically anything. Any cafe, any restaurant, wherever. I guess even parks, to be honest. So if you wouldn't take a test for a couple of days, your QR code would be yellow, which basically would not let you go anywhere. Actually, I remember when my QR code was even green. I wanted to enter this store, but the shop assistant, she checked my QR code and she said it's kind of a bit old, so she didn't really let me in because it was almost approaching that period when it would either turn yellow or I would need to actually make a new test. But sometimes you also wanted to avoid rush hours because during rush hour the lines would be too long. Tests were definitely annoying eventually after you do them, for months every day. Especially you would need to find spots where to do that and all that stuff. But right now I'm realizing all the dystopian fiction that I was a part of, that was cool. That's what we got. That's what was left during this conversation, this monologue. But guys, I do have an idea of the future episodes. The first thing in China, in Shanghai, like the first things that happened there. There is a decent amount of those ones, and I would love to share that with you in the future episodes. I love you very much. Share with me your unpredictable situations that happened in your life, not necessarily in Asia, anywhere. Maybe it even happened at home, you know? Who knows? Life is very unpredictable. That's the only thing I know. See you next time.